Or, well, maybe. There we go. Now we're good morning. We'll try that again. Good morning and welcome to Allen Avenue Universalist Unitarian Church in-person and online worship. Whether today is your first time here or you've been coming for years, we're so glad you are with us. My name is Denise Curry. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a member of the worship committee. We are a growing community that transforms lives through the power of love. Our mission calls us to celebrate diversity, encourage spiritual growth, and promote social responsibility while we travel on and care for the earth. A special welcome to those at home who are joining us on Zoom today. If you're attending for the first time, please go to our website and fill out the welcome card so we can know more about you. This morning's service about loneliness is presented by Allen Avenue's Worship Committee. Lay-led worship is a tradition at this and many other Universalist Unitarian churches. At Allen Avenue, the Worship Committee either sponsors or presents one such service a month. Most other Sunday services are led by Minister Reverend Tara Humphreys. So I have a few announcements here from the Social Justice Committee. The first one is the Share the Plate nominations. It is our tradition to share a third of each Sunday's offering to a nonprofit organization chosen by members of the congregation. Now is when the Social Justice Committee starts planning for next year's Share the Plate. Do you have a nonprofit organization that you'd like to nominate for next year church year? If so, there's a link to submit your nominations in the e-blast, or there's paper ones available in the foyer. Nominees must share our values, be consistent with our principles, be a 501c3 tax-exempt charitable organization. The nominees should also have local impact, provide volunteer opportunities for A2U2 members, and be small enough that a donation of $500 to $600 would make a difference. Nominees will be collected through Sunday, March 31st, and the Social Justice Committee will evaluate the nominees and make recommendations to the board. If you would like more information, see Jim Mason or Julie Harris, and I think the Social Justice Committee will have a table out back, so you can go there. The other thing is announcing the UUA Common Read for 2024. Most of us know of harm we have directly caused another person. Many also recognize that we have shared in doing harm, perhaps by benefiting from injustice others suffer. Even as people of faith who wish to make ourselves and our world better, we may still struggle to name and accept our responsibility. On Repentance and Repair by Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg provides a transformative perspective on how we can make ourselves accountable to others. The Social Justice Committee will be leading 3 book discussions in the coming weeks. Stop by the Social Justice table in the foyer after service for information. Now we invite you all to take the opportunity to silence your cell phones so that we can be fully present with one another. After the service, please grab a cup of coffee in the kitchen window and stay for conversation in the foyer. We encourage you to find someone you'll never met before and introduce yourself. Those on Zoom may stay on and connect with one another. And now, let us center our hearts and minds with the ringing of the chimes.
Our call to worship words are by Stephen M. Schick. From the loneliness of troubled times, we come to discover that we are not alone. Into the dwelling place of togetherness, we come to collect remnants of hope. From fear that all is lost, we come to discover what will save us. Into the comfort of each other's arms, we come to feel the strength that has not yet vanished. From darkness, we come to wait until our eyes begin to see. Into the refuge of fading dreams, we come to remove illusions and focus new visions. From despair that walks alone, we come to travel together. And as we light the flame of the chalice, I invite those on Zoom to light their own chalices or candles so that we can be connected. These words are by Shari Woodbury. To all who are yearning for community, come in, be among us. To all who are just getting started, to all who long to go deeper, to all with tender places needing care, come in, be among us. To the ones who have healed and have care to give, for those who are curious and hungry to learn, for those who know that they have something to teach, come in, be among us. For the ones who are just beginning to suspect they might nurture others' becoming, to the young and the old, the innocent and the jaded, the fresh of mind and the deeply steeped, there is room here for each and every one. Come in, be among us. And I invite you now to join us in our opening hymn, number 298, Wake Now My Senses. The words are in the gray hymnal and will be on the screen. Dale will play it through once, and then we'll sing it through together.
The first piece I want to share with you is called Imaginary Friends, Yours and Mine. For the first 6 years of my life, I was an only child and lived with my mom and dad in the Vermont countryside far from town. There were no other families or children nearby for us to spend time with, so the three of us kept each other company. During the day, Mom and I worked in our vegetable garden, picked wild berries, had picnics by the river, and took walks in the woods. In the evening, Dad read me stories, taught me about the stars and planets we saw in his telescope, and we used his paints and brushes to make pictures. There were also times when my mom and dad were too busy to play, or their work was too hard for a child to help do. Then I had to be alone and make my own fun. Sometimes alone felt lonely, and I wished I had another child to talk with or share my games. Just when I needed them the most, about the time I was 4 years old, my imaginary friends showed up. There were the twin boys, Eats and Keats, and the shy girl named Violin. The boys helped me try new things and to be brave, like climbing trees. And Violin listened to all my secrets. They took turns eating the vegetables I didn't like. Brussels sprouts, yuck. And they let me have the best parts in any make-believe game, from Peter Pan to Cinderella. The year I turned 6, 3 important things happened. My family moved to a large town. My first baby brother was born, and I began school as a first grader. We met our neighbors and began to participate in community activities like church suppers and band concerts. I was pretty busy helping my mom take care of the baby, and I started to make friends at school. I bet you can guess what happened next. I didn't have much time to be alone or feel lonely. I forgot to play with my imaginary friends. And because I really didn't need them anymore, they faded away until they were just memories. Maybe Eats, Keats, and Violin went to live with another child who'd been wishing for friends just like them. So I have questions for all of you. Do any of you have imaginary friends? Or used to? In the back. Tell me about your imaginary friends.
There was Manny, he was very good. There was Mike, who was very bad. And then there was, I don't remember what the little guy's name was, but he was a fence sitter. And whenever anything bad happened, it was always Manny's fault. And when anything good happened, it was Manny's device. And again, I can't remember who the little guy was, but he always sat on the fence and he went with whichever one looked best. And when we were playing on a boat, my nannies would go with us. And so my father would sit down on the floor and I'd say, "Dad, you're sitting on my nannies." I said, "Well, I can't see them." He said, "Well, just look." They were so real to me, so that I could see them. They had their own personalities, they dressed their own ways, and they were my companions. My brother wasn't born until I was 4. And I became a feminist that day because he got 3 names and I only had 2.
Unfair. Oh, that was such a fun story. Does anyone else have anything to share about an imaginary friend? Pastor Pleasant, do you? Do you have any imaginary friends? Yeah? You want to tell us about them? You have a dog. And what's your dog's name? Does he have a name? What is it? Lily. Lily? It's a girl dog? Uh-huh. And how long has Lily been part of your life? Your whole life. Okay. And what does Lily do for you? She plays with you? Okay. Is she good company? Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that story. Does anyone else want to share? I'm not sure how much time we have left, and I'm sorry, Zoom folks. Our first sharing was about Mandy and Mike and Fred, the fence sitter. And our member who shared that story about her past imaginary friends said that she left them behind in Marblehead. They didn't move to Maine. And Mike was very naughty, and Mandy was very good. And so when anything good happened, the good friend got the credit. And when anything bad happened, the bad friend got the blame. And the fence sitter kind of, was in the middle there. And it sounded like they were very, very real. And sometimes our member had to remind her parents not to sit on them. And they'd say, but I can't see them. And you're like, well, look. Okay. And then one of our young members shared a story about her dog, who's a very special friend and plays with her and keeps her company, and the dog's name is Lily. And Lily's still with us. And then our last sharing was a friend who lives in Scotland and is still in Scotland and is still part of her life. So those are wonderful stories. Thank you, everybody, for listening to mine and sharing a little bit of yours. And now I'd like to invite our RE director to come up for the lamplighter ceremony.
So we are about to leave the sanctuary for religious education programming, but Dolph has joined me in the pulpit, and she is our lamplighter today. And a lamplighter is entrusted to transfer the light of the sanctuary chalice to the lamp, and then go forth to RE spaces where she will light the chalice there. So Dolph will now light the lamp. Try again from here. See, it doesn't work unless you light it from the sanctuary chalice. One more time. I invite those going to RE to follow the lamplighter as we carry the flame, expanding our sacred space.
Good morning. My name is Mike Luce, member of the worship committee. And my piece is called Alone, Not Lonely. So first off, like Kate, I'm an only child, and I guess that gave me a leg up on dealing with loneliness or being alone from the get-go. Also, I was born in Caratunk, which had then maybe about 300 people, even less now, I guess. So not much of a peer group for play dates and on all of that stuff. And even when we moved to Freeport, I spent a lot of time playing alone until school and all that came along. So it's not surprising that my happy place is alone puttering around in my shop. But on the other hand, maybe in some kind of compensation, throughout my life I've been involved in activities and professions which emphasize teamwork. My first life was as a musician. I got over it, but almost always as a part of a larger group, all in sync, hopefully, breathing as one, listening and responding, closely united until you're doing it right. Then later on, when I found my calling, working in small teams in one way or another in community mental health, that fit, and it was always in small, intimate teams. All that sounds fine, but I can be lonely in a crowd. I usually am, actually. You see, one gene I lack is that small talk gene. I'm just fine in a task-oriented group, or if someone else starts a conversation on whatever, but just standing there with one or a dozen people, please don't ask me to start a conversation. I just don't have that whatever it takes to start talking with someone about a random subject. Sometimes I feel like I have an awkward silence zone around me in a group. There are conversation clusters all around, but I can't think of any reason why I would barge into any of them. Is that antisocial in some way? I do admit a tinge of misanthropy at times, like if I haven't been properly curating my intake of news, but I don't think that's it. On the other hand, I do have a bad habit of getting into serious conversations and saying things that can distress some, though, and that sort of stems from my pessimistic view of society. Actually, maybe I've hit on something. I don't start conversations because there's always the danger that I'll say what I think. Sometimes I'm rather unvarnished. References to the tragic unity of power and corruption, or how many of our fellow citizens seem just fine with fascist and fascist-adjacent behavior. See where my head goes? Who wants to hear that? So I leave if possible. I look at it as a perfectly reasonable, not to mention considerate, coping mechanism. So my cure for the times I feel lonely, go be alone.
Good morning. I'm Anna Noyes-Benoit and a member of the worship committee. This is my poem, In the Midst of My Solitude. In the midst of my solitude, I feel suddenly alone. Loneliness overtakes me and I grow afraid. Afraid to go outside, afraid to pick up the phone or reach out. Inside my head, I shout, "Hello out there! Do you hear me? Do you see me? Do you care?" I had stayed in my solitude too long. I miss the people now dead who used to surround me, who I love, but their numbers grow. I find it impossible to talk to the dead, although occasionally they speak to me by leaving signs. A heart-shaped rock, a cardinal in the bush by the window, or a photograph. After loneliness cascades sadness like a rush of cold air, and finally, that liar, depression. So I won't think anymore, but act. I'll put on my coat and walk out into the sunshine. I'll say hello to strangers and smile at small children and greet dogs. I'll look for 5 lovely things, remember them, and tell you when I return. A bell, a bird, people walking hand in hand, a dog in boots, and children playing.
My name is Erica Bartlett. Loneliness is such a strange thing. You can feel perfectly fine and content on your own, but when you're in a crowd, you can feel extremely lonely and isolated. I think it's because when you're in a group, you notice all the social interactions that you're not part of, and sometimes it cuts deep. I've experienced this plenty of times, but one time in particular always stands out in my memory. It was in early September 2008, when I was visiting the Galapagos Islands as part of a tour group. I was one of the only people there on my own, though. Others were in groups of friends or family, and most of the time it was fine. I had conversations about Doctor Who and Darwin with some of the young pre-college students from England, talked about life in the States with those from other countries and compared notes, and we were all equally in awe of the islands and animals we saw. But at one point, one of the younger guys from the UK looked at his digital camera and shook his head. "I have so many pictures," he said. "And who's going to want to see them all? Only your mum would sit through all these." I laughed and agreed, but inwardly, I suddenly felt very alone. This was over 8 years after my mom died in January 2000, but grief still hit hard sometimes. His casual comment reminded me that I didn't have a mom anymore, and it felt like a vast chasm opened between us, even though he wasn't much younger than me. It wasn't just that I missed my mom, though that was part of it. It was more encompassing, a sense of not having anyone I could relate to, especially since the only friend I had, even close to my age, who'd lost a parent, was thousands of miles away. Still, I pushed the feeling aside as best I could, not wanting to dwell on it. I wanted to enjoy the rest of my trip, and when I got home, it was fun telling people about it and showing them only a subset of my photos. On the surface, everything seemed fine, but I still felt an ache inside and somewhat apart from others. The feeling I'd tried to push aside didn't want to go away. That lasted for weeks before I finally realized I needed to face what I was feeling instead of trying to hide from it. And when I did, I wrote this poem, titled simply, Loneliness. It followed me, persistent as a puppy, this feeling I did not want to claim, doggedly trailing my every step, no matter how I sought to shake it. So I fled, seeking to lose it in crowds, in busyness, in forests of denial. But at last I ran out of evasive maneuvers, and when I stopped, too weary to go on, it caught me, sat on my feet, pinned me down. I stared at it, angry and scared of what it might do, uncertain what it wanted. It nudged my hand, gave me an imploring look. Exhausted, I closed my eyes, knelt, wrapped my arms around it, named it, loneliness. In the warmth of that embrace, I grew calm, my fears melting into faded dreams. All my running to avoid this, and yet facing it, brought me only peace. Opening my eyes, I saw that it had slipped away, leaving me, if only for a time. I know it will return, but when it does, I will not run. Instead, I will greet it with open arms. We are a freely gathered, open, and welcoming faith community supported by your contributions. Each week, 1/3 of our offering is given away to a nonprofit organization whose mission aligns with our Unitarian Universalist values. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Maine Adaptive Sports and Recreation. They promote year-round education and training for individuals with disabilities to develop skills, enhance independence, and provide enjoyment through active recreation. You can find more information in your order of service. Donations can be made now as the basket is passed through the donate button on our website, or if you're a member, through Breeze. If giving through Breeze, please note if the donation is your pledge or a gift to our Share the Plate. And if you're visiting us for the first time this morning, please know that your presence is your gift to us. At this time, our offering will be collected and gratefully received.
sits and stares through the back door screen. And all the news just repeats itself like some forgotten dream that we both see. Someday I'll go and call them Rudy. We worked together at the factory. But what could I say if he asked what's new? Nothing was with you. Nothing much to do. You know that old tree just grows stronger, and old rivers grow wilder every day. Old people just grow lonesome, waiting for someone to say hello in there. Hello. So if you're walking down the street sometime and spot some hollow ancient eyes, please don't just pass them by and stare as if you didn't care. Say hello in there. Hello.
Whoa, thank you, Mike. That was so beautiful. I have to take a moment. One can be a lonely number. You've heard or read stories about what many are calling the epidemic of loneliness. It is now commonly accepted that social isolation and resultant loneliness increases the possibility of mental and physical illness. This has been true for me at different times. In my freshman high school years, my dad accepted a position in Massachusetts, and we moved to the South Shore of Boston. Leaving friends I had known since third grade, I was a new girl in a large suburban high school where the other students already had established friendships. You really can be lonely in a crowd, and each day after school, I retreated to my bedroom to sleep until dinner time. I felt tired all the time. My appetite suffered, and I lost interest in most activities. My depression lingered until 3 other students invited me into their circle, and Canton High became my new home. In May 2000, my marriage ended. I moved to an apartment, and the first night alone, after being part of a couple for 32 years, was like falling down a deep, dark well. Most of my friends were couples my former husband and I had socialized with together, so invitations were awkward and eventually non-existent. But I found new connections at the North Chapel UU Church in Woodstock, Vermont. Raised Irish Roman Catholic, I was delighted to be welcomed into this community, and it became my spiritual home. Shared church activities with new friends brought me back to light and life. In April 2019, after a satisfying 15-year career with Maine Health, I retired. I gave up my downtown Portland apartment, put my belongings in storage, and moved temporarily into a friend's home. The end of May, I took a celebratory trip to Europe for 2 months. Except for group tours of Portugal and Sicily, I was a contented, joyful solo traveler. I was alone, but never lonely. Chatting with other travelers I encountered on the road and the local residents of Spain, Italy, and London, England. In December 2019, after my return, I moved into Northfield Green Senior Housing Complex. I was so busy getting settled, it didn't seem to matter that I didn't know other residents. By January 2020, the COVID bomb fell on the world. We lived with uncertainty, stress, confusion, a measure of fear, and due to the severity of this virus, many of us chose caution, and we heeded the emerging science about staying safe and healthy by avoiding indoor gatherings. My companions that winter were old favorite TV shows like MASH and The Waltons, a new jigsaw puzzle every few days, books, thank goodness, movies on Netflix, and outdoor walks with a few Maine Health friends. Until the vaccines became available, I lived a hermit's existence, and I experienced sleep problems, boredom, weight gain, mood swings. The lifestyle changes and social isolation of retirement and coping with the virus were all consuming. One can be a lonely number. In 2023, I noticed feeling a need for more meaningful connections, productive activities, and a desire for a wider social circle. I joined an Ollie walking club, a book club, took a couple trips, and since A2U2 was holding in-person services again, I came back to church. It was the last that made the most significant improvement in my quality of life. Yup, you saved me again. I am so grateful for a renewed sense of purpose, the warmth and acceptance of this community, the wonderful new relationships, and by your grace, the ability not only to survive, but to thrive.
Hi, I'm Susie. My pronouns are she and her. And this is called Connecting in Cyberspace. In my everyday life, I'm not sure I consciously feel much loneliness. There are exceptions, including the holiday season, when I miss the loved ones I've lost and our family celebrations. But as an entrenched introvert, I think that part of me has decided that any feelings of loneliness are preferable to meeting my fear of social interaction head on. And I've found ways to fend off the discomfort. I do need people, and I like them. When I interact with others, I almost always enjoy it once I'm actually into it. It's the beforehand that gets me. But only once in a while do I venture beyond the situations I've gotten very accustomed to and comfortable with. And that's where the internet comes in. I'm not only an introvert, but also by nature a reader and a writer. In a way, cyberspace is my perfect meeting ground with other human beings. I feel at ease there. Interacting with people in that space utilizes skills I've used my whole life. It feels like I can stick my neck out without fear of the guillotine. But I do have questions. Does the internet really count? as valid social interaction? I have a friend who says it doesn't count and can have aspects of addiction. He says that online interaction is only surface deep and lacks the capacity for deeper understanding and connection. He sees it as a waste of time. And I see multiple articles advising me how to break up with my phone, or in my case, my iPad. And I do sometimes wonder whether the time I spend online serves as an escape for me, another of the numerous ways to escape from the full pain, joy, and challenge of being alive. And yes, the loneliness. And I admit that there are times when I don't get other things done that matter to me because I spend too much time online. I'm recently starting to learn the self-discipline I need to keep things in balance, but it's a journey. However, looking at my life before the internet and now, I know my life is better now. The people I know mostly or entirely online feel like friends. If I happen to be with them in person, the ice has already been broken, and we don't have to get through the initial stages of getting to know each other. Interacting this way takes away the cold unknowingness and fear of being with strangers. I still move slowly, though, even with online friendships, and of course, I never interact with people who appear out of the blue, like the many accounts posing as potential romantic partners. The internet brings its own set of potentially dangerous unknowns. With that caution in place, I'm really glad the online world exists. It has changed my life in a good way, and I'm throwing away the guilt. Life offers quite enough opportunities to feel guilty without that.
In the quiet, misty morning, when the moon has gone to bed, when the sparrows stop their singing, and the sky is clear and red, when the summer ceased its gleaming, when the corn is past its prime, when adventure's lost its meaning, I'll be homeward in time. Bind me not to the pasture, chain me not to the plough. Set me free to find my calling, and I'll return to you somehow. If you find it's me you're missing, if you're hoping I'll return, to us I'll soon be listening.
Good morning. Our name is Rick Kimball, and our pronouns are our, we, us, you, they, them, and their. We chose the plurals after breaking up some of our own lonely minutes by heading to the bookshelf and hanging out with E.B. White and Walt Whitman. White was famous for his use of the editorial we when writing for The New Yorker. Whitman was famous for his own plurality. I am large, he said, I contain multitudes. Well, both White and Whitman are dead, of course. White died just once. But Whitman must have died multiple times, once for each of his encompassed selves. Whitman's conception of the self as plurality is a wonderful gift to us. We identify with it. We too are large. We too contain multitudes. We gaze into the mirror and see a mighty multi-us. Perhaps we too will die multiple times, with each of ourselves bidding the others a tearful goodbye on the way out. We will miss them because they help us stave off loneliness. How can we be lonely when those multitudes are frequently chatting and sometimes yelling angrily at each other? Well, we have found a way to feel lonely, and that way is going to bed, where the multitudes fall asleep one by one until only the essential self, the soul, is left in the dark, and in the aloneness of our remaining individual self, wondering how to cope with life and with illness and with death. Painful as these moments can be, we have discovered a benefit in them, for we have learned to fill the emptiness with creative thought. We recently came up with some dreadful puns for possible use in next year's Kimball Christmas card. Now all we need to do is remember where we wrote them down. Once, for a worship committee service on introversion, we used such wakeful moments to think up a little song beginning, "Introverted little me, by myself I like to be." Now there's an answer to loneliness. Delight in your own introversion as we delight in ours. Perhaps sometime we will rewrite the words and sing, "Lonely, lonely little me, that can't be because I'm we." Oh, I'm a mighty multi-me. That's why my ID is we. We used another such wakeful moment back in 2009 to conjure ideas for an earlier worship committee service on loneliness. We realized that A2U2 could stand not just for Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church, but also for, and if I can peel these apart, we'll find what it's going to be. There it is. But also for All Alone in Unitarian Universalism. Now that's a challenging idea because one cannot be alone in Unitarian Universalism. The church is all about community, and the church is a wonderful antidote to loneliness. This is a large part what its committees are for. This is a large part of what its spiritual enrichment groups are for. This is a large part of what all its various other collections of people are for, and this is much of what the whole church is for. Loneliness, at its most tormenting, signifies a spiritual emptiness, a broken connection to self, to other, to cosmos, to mystery. Our church exists to heal, to restore the failed connection. It recognizes and accepts the essential and existential aloneness establishing each of us as a human individual, and it devotes itself to keeping us from feeling that positive and essential aloneness as negative, even dangerous loneliness. Like Whitman, the church exults that it contains multitudes. In its case, multitudes of people both alone and together. It exists, as we said in 2009, that we may join in embrace of our spiritual aloneness, that we may join together in the religion and faith of A2U2, all alone in Unitarian Universalism, all alone together at the Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church, all alone and lonely not, which suggests a different expansion of A2U2, the oxymoronic yet valid alone altogether in Unitarian Universalism. The essential truth of the message emerges once again, all alone, but lonely not. Our final hymn is number 95 in the Gray Hymnal. No further instruction or explanation is necessary. We extinguish our chalice and prepare to part ways on the paths that meander but may one day reunite us, while sometimes moving us to others we can embrace in the warmth of connection, perhaps relieving loneliness, but beyond that building friendship and love as we seek and accept broad ideas of embraceable other, limited not by differences of race or politics or gender identity, and limited not by species, for the rewards of connection are greatest when the lines that link them are longest. Let us cut through the blocks of loneliness and fear. Let us reach out to those with whom we disagree, reach out to those we do not yet understand, reach out to the great diversity of life, accepting gratefully variety as gift, of bird and bear, of fish and fowl, of dog and cat. the wondrous cat that the worship committee will make the subject of its next service on February 18th.